I'm here today with Rick and Josh of DieHumane to talk about their debut record, The Grotesque, out May 5th on Warm Group. How are you both gentlemen doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Absolutely wonderful.
Well,
Thanks for having us, my friend Pedro.
Yeah, thank you. Love your channel.
It's my pleasure to have both of you on the channel to talk about this record. I knew you guys were working on this because I know Sal pretty well, and I saw some of his posts about it. I honestly had no clue what I was getting myself into the moment that I pressed play. And before we even get into this record, because there's so many questions to ask, I have to ask you guys, how did it all get started? How did this eclectic group of friends got together to create this very eclectic sound that you guys?
Oh man, you got about 20 minutes? No, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, you want to take that one, Rick?
Well, okay. I will tell you how I got involved to start off, and then I'll let Josh go from the beginning. Okay, so I'm sitting at home one day, and I'm just doing my thing, sitting at home with the kids, and I get a text from my dear friend Steve Esquivel from Skin Lab, talking about, hey, I got these guys that I've been working with in Texas that are looking for a bluesy guitar player, bro. And I'm like, well, shit, and I wasn't even really into, I wasn't looking for a band at the time, to tell the truth. So I said, send me over some music. So he sent me over some really rough stuff. I think it was Ghosts. I think it was the first song that I heard.
Yeah, Ghosts and Skeletons.
Yeah, it was really, really rough. That was when Steve was still on it. And so I didn't even really listen to it for about 2 weeks. And then I'm sitting there at home, and I said, let me give this a listen. And I started listening to this music, man, and I'm just going, wow, this is really, really, number one, really out there, which I really dug. And number two was just phenomenal. I loved everything about it. I was just in my mind picturing like what I could do guitar wise on this music, and it was fantastic. So long story short, Steve hooked me up with Josh and everybody else, and I ultimately went down and met them in LA and recorded for 3 or 4 days and did my leads, and that was it.
That was a fun few days.
Yeah, it was awesome. So awesome. Oh, Rick is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So Josh, before Rick joined this eclectic cast of mischiefs, how did you guys get together?
Well, it basically started in 2020. I've always played music, but that's never really kind of been my thing. I played in bands when I was much younger, but I kind of got mixed up in the film and music video and stuff like that industry, shooting music videos for bands and stuff like that. But when 2020 hit, everything kind of came to a halt. Everybody basically was stuck at home, not really doing anything. It was the first time in my life I didn't know what next week looked like, So kind of to come to grips with that and to give my brain something to do, I started recording music, honestly. And Greg, the keyboard player, he's one of my best friends. We've known each other since 2007. I started kind of roping him into it, and he would, periodically come over and he'd put some keys and stuff. Occasionally he'd do like a little guitar track over something. And eventually it started to take shape. And I hit up Garrett West. Garrett's another really good friend of mine. We've worked together on other stuff in the past, not musically, just film stuff. And I asked him to put some vocals on it, which he did. And dude, Garrett West is one of the best vocalists on the planet. People just don't know it yet.
Oh, they're gonna know.
So from there, I wound up sending it to Steve Esquivel. I've shot music videos for Steve's band Skin Lab, and I sent it to him just essentially like, hey, you think you might want to guest on this track? We don't really know what we're gonna do with it yet, but we just know we want to do something with it. And he wound up calling me back super excited about it, and he put me in touch with Rick. And eventually he got us in touch with Sal. Sal was like the last person to join. And then from there, everything just kind of snowballed, man. Sal wound up, going back and putting live drums on all of it because a lot of the drums were programmed. And then, we flew out to LA for about 4 days and hung out with Rick and, recorded at Ulrich's and had an absolute blast. It was so much fun. I got to torture everybody with Man of War in the mornings. It was great.
Yeah, baby.
I love Man of War. But yeah, then just from there, then Des got involved as our management, and we mixed the album, and now we're here. And it comes out Friday.
It's been a long road.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a long road, and that was going to be my next question. On that road, how was the creative process? How much material did you guys have before you hit the studio, and how much did you have to work on at that specific time?
Basically it was all done, except for the lead guitar, and I came in and did all the leads in 4 days. But Josh and Garrett and Greg have been writing this since 2020. So basically it was all done except for like Shell Shock. We did Shell Shock, and that's about it, right, Josh?
Yeah, Shell Shock was the last one we wrote.
Yep.
And yeah, we recorded the leads for that one basically in my kitchen when the band came in town for the photo shoot.
Wow.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was a lot of fun.
So Josh, let me ask you this. Listening to this record, it's easy to see the influences into the record, into the sound, there's a ton of different influences coming in. But where does the inspiration for such an eclectic, or like people would say these days, avant-garde? I'm not a big fan of that expression, but where does this eclectic sound idea grew up from? Like, where did you pull this from? Because I don't think you wake up in the morning and think, I want to make music that sounds like this.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of a hard one to answer, because it's not like I sat down to make music and I'm like, oh, I'm going to make some weird shit. It's really kind of just what came out naturally. I'm a big fan of not really giving a shit as far as like what's going on in popular music or anything like that. To me, if I had to sit down and somebody was like, write an album that sounds like this, dude, I'd tank. Like I would absolutely tank. Like I only know how to do me, So I mean, what came out is just what came out. I just wrote what I was feeling at the time and a sound that I had in my head, and that was it.
And honestly, so Josh like writes this stuff, and then he'll send it down the line, and everybody puts their stamp on it. You know what I mean?
That's what really, to me, gives it its originality.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, it's when I was listening to the album, every song surprised me because every song didn't sound like anything that was before, and it didn't sound like anything that came after. And I was just so intrigued. Yeah, I was just so intrigued with the texture. Like the sound has so much texture. Drums, guitars, bass, the vocals, everything. It's just it's like a living organism. The sound on this record. It's something like I've never really heard before, I must say.
Thank you.
And I was sitting there, my wife is watching a movie and she's like, what are you listening to? And I was like, I can't describe it. I honestly can't I can't tell you what it is. Depending on what song I'm in, I'm gonna give you a different description. So how do you guys, when you're talking to your friends over a coffee or a drink, how do you describe the band, the sound?
It's like that. Have you seen the movie Airheads?
Yes.
You know that part where they're in the studio and it's like, well, what kind of music is your band? And everybody just starts talking and saying different shit. Not like that.
That's about it too, bro. But that's honestly a good question because I also am not a big fan of the term avant-garde for some reason. I don't hate it, but I don't really think it fits. But I honestly don't know what to call this band. I've just been calling it music beyond definition. That's I don't know. But Josh doesn't like that term.
I mean, when I think I've seen some avant-garde bands play. I'm in Toronto, so I've seen some bands play here. honestly, some of them sound like they're out of tune. Some of them sound like they're playing in reverse. Some they don't sound like they're even playing at all. So
Yeah,
you guys
there's
are nothing like that. I mean, if there's one thing you guys are all doing is playing and playing really well. So
like
Thank you. I
when I
appreciate that.
think of music that kind of adapts that term avant-garde, I think of pretty much what you just described, just a lot of banging around people, just a lot of just senseless noise. And it's like, look, it's abstract. But
Right.
exactly.
to me, to me, there's bands like Porcupine Tree. Like, what else would you call them? Like they don't really sound like anything. I think if Nine Inch Nails had not did Pretty Hate Machine or the album that came after that, Broken, I don't even know if people would have been able to describe them as industrial, because after their first two albums, they're something completely different that there's still not really an accurate term for.
Right.
I don't really know how the hell to describe our music, honestly. It's a thing.
Because I was thinking you guys are going to have to market the record somehow because you obviously want to sell it. And I'm like, what do you, people in PR and marketing love labels, put labels on shit. So I'm like, how are these guys going to label something that I felt like I've never heard anything like this before? And I mean this as a compliment. I've never heard an
Thank
album
you.
like this before. It really blew me away. This is easily one of the greatest debut records of all time. I'm not even blowing smoke up you guys' asses. That's how good it is.
Wow.
And it's probably one of the best albums that's going to see the light of day in 2023. It's just an outstanding record.
Thank you, man. I appreciate
Thank you
that.
so much, man.
So, honestly, the way I feel about it, instead of putting a label on it, we're just gonna have to go out there and just crush it live. But you know what I mean? We're just gonna have to put on a make, because this music, when you listen to this music, I don't know about you, but I picture a big production, you know what I'm saying? Like, it could be huge, it's got everything, done right, it could just, it's just gonna be outstanding.
Yeah, I think the key thing with us is just to as weird as it may sound, because our entire existence is based on complete left turns, is we just do what we do.
Yeah.
We just, if anybody asks, well, what is it? It's different.
It's
It's
DieHumane.
metal-esque something.
Yeah, it's got
Um,
metal roots, but
but I've said it before. To me, the album was a success as soon as it was done. Like, we made what we were trying to make, and I love the album. So I mean, to me, it's a success right there. As far as like how many people wind up discovering or listening to it, I mean, it's only up from here. If 10 people found it and they liked it, I'd be happy. But the more the merrier. So
Well, I got to tell you
um,
guys, I've been spreading the word. I've been spreading the word everywhere I can. I went to a show this past weekend, and I was telling everybody that they have to check out this band. And so I'm taking the gospel and running with it, and I'm spreading the word like, I don't know, like Jesus back in the day. So that's kind of like the approach that I'm taking.
oh, thank
dude,
you,
thank
Pedro.
you so much, man.
That's
When you
huge.
find, when you
Thank you,
find
man.
something good, you have to share it with other people. It's so hard not to share it with other people because you want
No,
to.
I agree. It's so
Yeah,
true. It's so true.
yeah,
You know,
we're putting it out there. The album comes out Friday. Pretty much anywhere you can get music. We're about to be on the radio in a lot of places. Our radio campaign starts. We got another music video that's about to come out. Some website that I can't really name yet is going to be doing a live stream of the album, like an exclusive stream of the album at some point in time this week. So we got that going on. I mean, it's like, to me, though, just the whole thing it's surreal because of just kind of what it turned into. To me, it's one of those testaments to where, like, the end of 2020 was bad. Like, I had a really rough year that year. I know a lot of other people did, but it's one of those reasons to stay positive, because you truly have no clue, like, what the hell tomorrow is going to be.
no
It
doubt.
could be something so out of left field that you would sit there and just laugh at yourself for being so bummed out.
Right.
And you
Yeah.
guys touched on something that I think it's important, which is you guys were talking about more in terms of stage production, but I want to ask you guys about the production on the record. Because for a lack of a better term, I felt like this album had really fat production. It had the sound was obese. It had volume to it. Like I really dig that because I felt was really good in terms of how diverse the sound was, but that balance stayed very consistent from start to finish. Was that the vision from the beginning to give the sound that sort of robust nature to it?
Yes, it was, and that's the only three producers we ever looked at for this album was Ulrich Wild, and Ulrich Wild. 'Cause that dude is an absolute master. If you go back and listen to a lot of the stuff he's done, and I mean, dude, Ulrich, he's worked on anything from Alice in Chains, Dirt, to Doggy Style from Snoop Dogg, Static X
Pantera,
stuff,
White
Deftones,
Zombie.
yeah, White Zombie, Pantera, you name it. Like the guy is really good. Oops, he's Ulrich's really good at like soundscapes and making things sound, ginormous and massive and
Yeah.
taking a lot of different layers and mixing them together perfectly.
But no,
And
hey,
we
I'm
needed
not gonna
somebody
lie.
like that on the DieHumane album because there's so much going on at all times. You turn one knob the wrong way and it'll knock the whole thing over.
Yeah. So I can tell you there was times when I'm sure that Ulrich was ripping his hair out trying to mix this shit. Because I have to be honest, it's not an easy mix at all.
No,
It doesn't sound like it.
You know, but if you would have heard some of the roughs, to hear what he did and to the finished product, I think the most impressive thing in my mind was the drums. He just killed the drums, bro. I mean, the drums are they're
he did.
so huge.
Yeah, they're
Well,
massive.
Sal did a lot of that.
No, Sal did. Sal recorded the hell out of them drums. No, he did. Yes, he did. But Ulrich mixed the hell out of them, dude. It's not
Yeah,
an
he
easy
did.
task.
And I gotta say, from
Just
all
to
the
get
different,
the violins underneath everything and having the solo like just not drowned, but being able to hear and then Garrett. Oh God, man, it's crazy.
and that was one of the things I was going to say. From all the influences that the album has, I mean, from doom to goth to industrial, the thing that surprised me the most was the jazz influences. Because I mean, now you hear a lot of bands are using like saxophones and stuff like that, but you guys didn't just use saxophones. I mean, there's a lot of strings, there's a lot of orchestration, and I thought that added also another layer, not only from a sound point of view, but from an atmosphere point of view, in terms of the lyrics, the message in the lyrics, the stories that you guys are trying to tell. Those orchestrations really help those stories come to life. How was that process on an album that already has so many layers, trying to add that one more in order to give the overall theme of the record a little bit more soul?
When I was working with Samuel Baker, that's the saxophone player on the album. When I was working with him for a lot of that stuff, a lot of the references we would go to for inspiration, it was almost never music. It was film a lot of the time, and him and me are both big fans of David Lynch. He did like the Twin Peaks, Lost Highway, all that stuff. And the way David Lynch kind of uses music in his films is really kind of unnerving. So when it came to the element of the saxophone, that's kind of what we kept going to, was like, we don't want it to sound like smooth jazz happy. We want it to sound like impending doom, like something's
Aggressive.
wrong. Like even if you have like a really pretty melody going, you have the really just crazy off kilter saxophone in the background, just kind of adding a whole layer of just disturbia underneath it.
Yeah,
And
almost like a Alfred Hitchcock vibe at times.
right. And like if you listen to the saxophone in Crossroads, basically what I did there was I sent him the song and I told him, don't play anything along with it. I said, just ramble incoherently on the saxophone, slightly out of key. And then we put it in there, and that's the part where everything just gets kind of crazy, and then the saxophone kicks in and all that. It helped shape that, and it just made it a little bit more uglier and unnerving,
And Rick, so these guys contacted you. They say we need somebody to play some jazz on guitar, some jazz leads,
Well,
and
jazz blues, yeah.
it's blues. Sorry, blues. Some blues
No, no, it's okay.
guitar. And so, how was your approach? Like, so how do you go into a record like this with that kind of thing in the back of your mind, but still, having the freedom to obviously do what you want to do?
Okay, so that's a great question, and I have a great answer for that. Because I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't easy at first. Because my background, I come from the thrash metal. You know what I mean? So we all know that thrash metal is like 99.9% guitar, and the rest drums. So and that being said, the guitar is on, especially Exodus, is on 10 all the time. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of dynamics going on in the guitars. It's just my volume knob on my guitar is on 10, my amps are full drive, and it's go. You know what I mean? So when you're soloing when you're playing lead in an environment like that, it's more of a like I'm not gonna say like a shred, but I never really did a whole bunch of arpeggios in Exodus, but I tried to like I played a lot faster. DieHumane was a lot different. So when I first got the music, I sat with this music for 2 weeks before I went to record, and I would just play the album all the way through and just play lead over it. You know what I mean? Over every song, over every part. You know what I mean? Because I honestly I didn't know where Josh wanted the solos until I got to the studio. So I just let my phone go and played all of them all the way through, and I would in my mind come up with little melodies and stick them in the back of my mind. I say, okay, well, this part, this is cool. But when I got to Ulrich's, honestly, okay, so DieHumane, it's a different animal. It's like there's so much space in the music, right? And to play leads to this music, for one, it's way more musical than Exodus is. You know what I mean? There's more melody and it's more musical. You know what I mean? So it's it's really, really fun for me. And then I just honestly, what I did for real is I just shut my eyes and just took a deep breath and just played less is more. You know what I mean? Instead of playing 10 notes in a phrase, I would just like play 2 and use a bend or something, to fill out that void. You know what I'm saying? So it would be like, instead of it would be like like more what's the feel more feel. So yeah, it was hard at first, but I had to really dig deep and play less is more. That's for sure.
It's funny you mentioned Exodus, because when I saw the lineup, like I said, I saw Sal posting on Facebook about the band and what was coming, and I see your name, I see Sal, and I'm like, all right, I know what I'm going to get from the drums. Now, are we going to get like some Bonded by Blood shreds on this thing? And I'm like, I don't think that's where they're going with. But so I was surprised with what I got guitar wise, and I got to say the solos on this record, tons of heart. Like from a listener's point of view, it felt to me that they were played with emotion. Like they were not like preordained, if you will. Like it was more, what does the song feel at this time, and how do I feel in terms of the song, and whatever
100%.
years play, that's what's going to come out.
That's exactly
Can I
what
tell
happened.
a funny story about that?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Because yeah, Rick's a really humble, nice guy. He's not going to rant about what a just total freaking badass he is. So I guess the way he described it, maybe internally it was differently, but what I saw when we showed up at Ulrich's was absolutely insane. We had hung out like the previous day, just chilling and everything. And when you meet and you hang out with Rick, man, he's like not to put you on the spot or anything, dude, but he's like the nicest dude ever. You forget that the dude is a freaking guitar legend. So we show up to Allworks, dude, and he picked up that guitar, and I think the first solo we did was Oblivion, and he just let it rip, and everybody in the room's jaws are on the floor. But my favorite moment from back then was when we did the solo for Stardust Blues, for the really kind of heavy part towards the end, where he just has that ripping solo over it. We moved into that song, and we got it queued up and everything. We hit play, and Rick did that solo in one take. That was the one solo where it was just like one take, that exact solo, all those notes, no going back and messing with anything or anything like that. And as soon as we hit stop, just everybody was just kind of quiet. And I looked at Ulrich and he looked at me. He was like, dude, that was the one. And just, yeah, so when you hear that solo on the album, that's Rick in one take.
Yeah,
So,
the solo turned out good, man. I get goosebumps when I listen to some of this stuff. It's actually really emotional for me to listen to this stuff, even to this day. I mean, I've heard it so many times and I played to it so much, but when I still, it's very emotional music, man. I'm telling you.
I got a couple more questions for you guys, and the one thing I have to ask you, because I already recorded my review, is going to come out on the day of the release on May 5th. And
oh, nice.
one of the things that I mentioned on my review about the design of the record is that I felt like this album fits two different types of listeners. You guys created a record where you separated a little bit of the intros from the songs, creating like interludes in between songs, but the interludes play as an intro to the song that comes after. So if you're listening to the album from beginning to end, you're going to have a very complete experience, because those intros, those interludes build you into what the song offers right after. But if you're a modern listen with a very short attention span and all you do is you listen to stuff on Spotify, you can go just straight to the track and you get the goods right away. So it's a very intelligent way of building a record for the old school listeners like me, but also for the modern listeners like my son. So was that the mindset in creating a design that separates those intros from the tracks?
That, to be completely honest, that I can blame 100% on Ulrich Wild. That was his idea. I was kind of, because when we wrote those songs, I mean, they had the intros intact, like they were part of the song.
Yeah, each and every one of them, right? Tell them that, yeah.
Yeah, every single one of them. So then Ulrich kind of threw that idea out there, and it was a good idea. It's a really good idea. And he pretty much said exactly what you just said. He said that way, if somebody wants to listen to it as an album, they can. But if they're on Spotify and they're just, wanting to get to the nitty gritty, they can do that too. So that's 100% Ulrich. The only one that we wouldn't separate was Stardust Blues, the last song on the album.
You can't. That one you can't. And that one to me is the perfect closing song for the album too. Because it's like the curtain coming down or the credits rolling in a movie. You can't put that song anywhere and you can't fuck it up with it.
Exactly.
You are a smart listener, friend. Pedro, you rock, dude. You have said some awesome things about this album, but they're so true. You're right about that, man. Right. Stardust Blues is exactly where it needs to be, and it couldn't have been anywhere else.
That's why Sal is my friend. He's me and him, we talk about music all the time. I'm a big fan of his work, and I take my time listening to an album when I'm doing a review, because I know you guys took your time creating the record. So I feel like if I'm going to talk about it and if I'm going to put it out there for the people to listen to, you guys deserve my utmost and time and dedication listening to that record. So I don't
awesome.
I don't skip around. I feel like you guys and any artist out there deserves the attention if you're going to be talking about a record, not just listen to 5 seconds and have an opinion like people these days. They listen to one song, they have an opinion. So I pride myself in that, and this one was an easy one to get into because it was good. It was easy for me to get myself lost in it. So it's a good record from that point of view.
Can I ask you a question?
Thank you so much, man.
What's your favorite song on the album?
Oh, Ghosts.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit. You hear that, Josh?
Concrete Spew said the same thing.
Really?
Ghosts was his favorite.
No shit. Dude, it's so crazy. My kids is Crossroads.
Crossroads is in my top 3. It's in my top 3.
Crossroads?
Yeah. But it's one of those records that every time you listen to it, you're gonna pick a different one. To be honest with you, it depends on what mood you were in before you press play.
Yeah, Ghost is a good song. I think Ghost is like, to me, it rings radio hit. You know what I mean? That song is like, I don't know. It's just, I think it's getting overlooked a little bit, but we'll see what happens with that song.
We were listening to a lot of Perfect Circle when we wrote that one.
Right.
It has a little bit of that vibe. I got one last question for you guys, and that is perhaps the $1 million question. Is this going to be just a project? Are you guys going to go from studio record to studio record, or are you guys planning on taking this show on the road and playing some live gigs?
Oh, we're going to play live.
Oh,
we're definitely going to play live.
Yeah.
Yeah, we fully intend on playing live. It would just be a really fun. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rick.
No, we're not going to do it until it's perfect, though. We're going to get it to where we can sound like the album live. You know what I'm saying? Without samples, without none of that shit. We're just going to go up there and play this music the way it should be played.
Yeah, we've basically just been trying to get to the album release, you know, and now that the album's about to come out, you know, playing live it's the next thing, you know. But the music and then the composing of it and the recording it and the mixing it and all that has just been all the way up until, you know, now, or basically Friday, the most important part and the most important thing, and kind of been what we kept our focus on. But playing live, there's already been ideas tossed around. We've had people approach us about playing certain places. But just like Rick said, it's, you know, as far as like nailing down any live dates, our top priority is going to be nailing down the songs live, because there's a lot going on in those songs, and we want to, you know, get in the room and just kind of catch the vibe, and because, you know, it's when we all get around each other, it's always awesome. Like, it's such a weird motley group of people, you know.
No, but it's so fun though.
Yeah, exactly. And just the thought of getting in a room and starting to play these songs live and stuff, that sounds like a blast. So yeah, there's definitely some touring on the horizon. There's definitely some shows on the horizon. But yeah, we've just now got to that point to where we can actually start entertaining some of this stuff.
So when Pedro, you're in Toronto, you said?
I'm in Toronto, yeah.
Yeah, so when we hit Toronto, buddy, you're there.
I'm there. Dude, I'm gonna be there, shirts off, with my tits swinging, whatever you guys want.
Me too.
You guys tell me whatever you want, and I'm there. I'm there. There's no way I would be, unless I'm in my deathbed, and even then, probably I would get somebody to wheel me to the venue. I gotta listen to this album. I gotta listen to this shit live. I really do. Like,
yeah.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not blowing smoke up you guys' asses. I honestly really love the sound and the experience that you guys created. It's something different, something unique, something that I haven't heard before. And in a world that everybody's copying everybody else, it's not every day that you hear an album that sounds like this. And I hope more people watch this interview, check out my album review, and hear the words that I've been spreading for the last couple of days, and go check you guys out. And
you're such a smart listener, bro.
And Rick and Josh, I promise you guys, you play Toronto, I'm there 100%.
Thank you so much, man. I really love your YouTube channel, man. I watch the reviews and stuff that you do, and the interviews and stuff that you do, and you know, y'all do really good stuff. Y'all put out really great content. So it's cool to be on here and, you know, have you interview us and review the album and everything. We really appreciate that.
No, we so appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys taking the time on such a short notice. So it's my honor and my pleasure to have you guys on the channel. And let's stay in touch. If you guys play a show in Toronto, I'm going to be there 100%.
But just keep in touch, man. You can DM me anytime you want. Josh, too. Just say, hey, what's up, dude? We can just talk.
I'll do that. You guys are the best. I love you both.
Thank you so much, man.
I love you both. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
Of course.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. Thank you, Pedro.
Pleasure.